Today in Harvard Square, we're off to visit a site associated with W.E.B. Du Bois. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois was born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts in 1868. Known to his friends as Will, history knows him as W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the most prominent voices in the African-American fight for equality. In his youth, he attended a school with only about 25 students, both black and white. Growing up in a fairly well-to-do family, his first encounters with the cruelty of overt racism would come when he attended Fisk University, a traditionally black college in Tennessee. 4 Congregationalist churches in the Berkshires had pledged $25 apiece to Du Bois for his tuition there. He would write, deeply impressed with his black Southern peers, "I can hardly realize they are all my people, that this great assembly of youth and intelligence are representatives of a race which 20 years ago was in bondage." Upon graduation, Du Bois fulfilled a lifelong dream by attending Harvard, first for a second bachelor's degree, then a master's degree. After a stint through Europe, where the color of his skin was all but disregarded, he returned to Harvard and received the first PhD awarded by the university to a man of color for history in 1895. He quipped later, "The honor, I assure you, was Harvard's." The following year, while teaching at Wilberforce University in Ohio, he met his wife, Nina. They had 2 children together in their long marriage. In 1897, he accepted a post at Atlanta University, where he worked for the next 5 decades. He began to compose essays and newspaper articles on the condition of African Americans, their culture, history, and economic and educational plight. The culmination of these works was published in the iconic 1903 book, The Souls of Black Folks, Essays and Sketches. His approach to equality was, at first, cool and academic. Along with Booker T. Washington, president of the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, his view was that even while segregated, the black community could prosper. Washington pushed the idea that building a separate black community that was self-reliant would convince white Americans of African Americans' worth, while also protecting the black community from harm. In an essay from 1903, Du Bois would remark, "Education and work are the levers to uplift a people. Work alone will not do it unless inspired by the right ideals and guided by intelligence. Education must not simply teach work, it must teach life." Du Bois began to feel that separate but equal was insufficient in 1899, with the lynching of Sam Hose. Hose was seized by a lynch mob of nearly 2,000 unmasked vigilantes who cut off his ears, fingers, genitals, and facial skin, doused him in kerosene, and burned him alive, hanging his corpse. When Du Bois was told the next day that Sam Hose's knuckles were on sale for purchase as souvenirs, and that the white mob had unapologetically posed for journalist photographs, he was dumbfounded. He understood then that a segregated society would always remain fearful and ignorant, exposing countless others to lynch mobs and vigilantes. Integration had become an urgent matter of safety for Black Americans. In 1905, he joined a group of other African American men at Niagara Falls in upstate New York. Denied entry into any of the American hotels at the popular tourist destination, the group of men convened on the Canadian side of the border and started the coordinated efforts to begin the fight against Jim Crow laws and American bigotry. At first called the Niagara Movement, after this initial meeting's location, the organization grew rapidly. In 1908, in Springfield, Illinois, a vicious attack by the white community would see an entire neighborhood of African Americans terrorized, with black businesses and houses burned down, brutal beatings, looting, and murders. This caused an outpouring of support for the advancement of equal rights for African Americans, and Du Bois would help found the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, the following year. The organization still exists and fights for black rights today in 2020. As a founding member, director of publicity, and editor of the NAACP monthly magazine, The Crisis, Du Bois would give voice to the nation's oppressed. A hard-earned victory came in 1922 when an anti-lynching bill was finally introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives. The law was blocked by Southern Democrats, and the U.S. would sadly not officially pass anti-lynching legislation until 2020. A proponent of Pan-Africanism, Du Bois was deeply critical of colonialism and pushed for a united, independent Africa, along with equal rights for people of color across the world. As a self-described socialist, he was tried by the House Un-American Activities Committee and Joseph McCarthy for being a Soviet agent in 1951 at the age of 83. Famous for his towering intellectualism, the civil rights pioneer would often return to Harvard for class reunions and speeches. Giving thousands of other lectures throughout his life and publishing The Crisis, Du Bois had helped to formalize the fight for civil rights. He founded or led the organizations that would become instrumental in this fight. He died on August 27, 1963, in Ghana, where he'd become a citizen the year before. It was the day before Martin Luther King Jr. would make his iconic I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington.